Great.
Hi everybody, welcome to our talks at GROWTHhub today. Today we have Orla Reynolds, founder of Orla Reynolds Studio, an award-winning designer, entrepreneur, and also mentor to new startups. So, welcome Orla. Tell us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, GROWTHhub. I'm thrilled.
Fabulous to have you here. So, tell us, how did it all begin?
Wow. Well, I had quite a colourful journey. I started, my career goal was to be a ballet dancer. And I trained from the age of 4 to be a ballet dancer. And I got into the Kirov Ballet Company in Russia, and I got into the Urdang Academy in London, and that was the plan. I didn't like school, and I was going to be a dancer, and unfortunately I got an injury that ended my career, and I couldn't do anything. There was something wrong with my legs and they didn't know what, and I was told to sit, and
Wow.
I spent 4 years sitting, and I became a receptionist, administration, and I got a doctor who figured out what was wrong. Up until that point, I was being told to go see a psychiatrist because it was all in my head.
Oh my God.
But I couldn't walk upstairs, and I was 19 years old, so there was something wrong. And I was in the bank at this stage, and I found a surgeon who figured out what it was, and it was an injury more commonly known in men who play rugby. So they didn't think to look for it in a woman. And I had surgery and I was fixed, but I was too old to dance. So I started saving half my paycheck, and I decided to go back to college. So that was the beginning.
Yeah, that was the beginning. Wow. And dancing is so intense and hardworking and a lot of training, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I would say you probably then needed something to be as hard.
Exactly. I wanted a passion again.
Yeah,
I really missed it. I worked really well. I enjoyed the bank. I was good at it. I was promoted, but I just needed more.
Yeah.
And I really set out on a mission to find a new passion.
Yeah.
So I was thrilled to be accepted into the interior and furniture design program.
Yeah,
at TU
and
Dublin.
how come you picked up furniture? Was it what you expected? Did you had a good time with us?
Well, I wanted to get back on the stage, so my plan was to become a set designer. Mm-hmm. And I thought if I did interiors, I could get into production design, and I'd go that way.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved my time at TU Dublin. It was literally the best years of my life, because it was big risk. I went back at 23, and as a mature student, leaving a pensionable job. But my family were so supportive of that. They knew that I had to be making things.
Yeah.
And I just loved it from the minute I walked in the door.
Yeah.
I knew I was in the right place.
Yeah. And then I love your product. How did Orla, the student, became and did such a fabulous design of something so useful? So tell us, why did you design it? That I know, by the way. That's why I'm asking. Why you design it, and where did that journey brought you of just
designing
having the idea of doing it?
The product.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, I wanted to get back onto the stage, and then when you're in interior and furniture design, eventually you decide to specialise. So I specialised in furniture design. I wasn't very good at computers, and interiors would have been quite computer heavy and rendering and all these things, and that wasn't my skill set. I loved making models. I loved being in the workshop. And when it came to our final year, we had to choose a theme. And the lecturers said you have to choose a theme that's, really close to your heart and it's going to keep you motivated. And I thought, okay, it should be about dance. But I didn't know if I'd find it really difficult. And so I played around with it, and at the same time, my sister was moving into an apartment and she had very little space and she loved entertaining. And my parents' house had loads of chairs around in case somebody called by. And my sister would be calling up to get the chairs to bring down to her apartment. And I decided, I made the choice to make it about dance. And I wrote my written thesis on theatre and production design. And then I wanted the design thesis to focus on dance. So what it ended up being, the product, was a scene change. Because I realised the most wasted space in my sister's house, in my sister's apartment, was the walls, and how to optimise that. And these random chairs were the problem. and so I just started model making and prototyping, and I still remember the day that I figured it out. And I was in my bedroom and I did a really quick Google SketchUp model.
Yes.
And I printed off how it functions. So I printed off the front elevation and then an isometric, and I brought it down to my mother, and she was in the kitchen, and I showed it to her, and she was like, "Oh, that's very nice." I was like, "Can you figure it out?" And she thought it was brilliant. And so I went back up to my room and I built the model, because that's where my skill set was. And I submitted that. And what happened next was more than I could ever have imagined. Because I submitted that at Christmas in final year. And then I had 2 months to build the prototype in the workshop. And then I wanted the finished piece to be produced. So I found a manufacturer.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I wanted it to have that impact. And, you know, everyone always says, why did you choose the colours? And when I found the manufacturer, we were going to do just one colour. And I thought, this is going to be the most expensive piece of furniture I've probably ever owned. Because it's a one-off. And I want rainbow chairs. So we produced that. But all the while, I think the entrepreneurship was coming into it. And I was watching other studios around Dublin, and they put out teasers of a product launch. And so I started doing that on social media. And just dropping something colourful, and, you know, this was 10 years ago.
I know.
So social media isn't...
It's super new.
Or was it? Yeah, it was really new. And, you know, I wasn't looking at analytics or anything like that. It was just, you know, posting something. But I had a video to show the functionality of the furniture. And that was part of my submission. But I sent it out to design magazines all around the world with a press release. And my intention was to just be employed. I wanted to be employed. My friends at the time were buying houses, and I was graduating from college. So I wanted to hit the ground running. And we had the grad show, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And I sent out the press releases a week before to say it was launching on the night of the grad show. And then there was about 2 days of recovery after the grad show. And my dad said to me, the website's crashed. And because we built it together, I took a web design module and we built it together. And he said the website's crashed. And at the time, that didn't really mean a lot to me. And I was like, oh, what'll we do about that? You know? And he was like, no, it's crashed because of the amount of people visiting. And I opened the email, my email, and it was just not, how do I buy this? How do I buy this? Not even emails of, I saw your furniture. It was in the subject line, how do I buy this? And it had appeared on Design. And that's where it took off. And it was voted in the top 10 design videos.
And at that stage,
year.
you only had one.
I only had one. I know. I just remember looking at my family going, what am I going to do?
How am I going to produce all this amount
what
of
am I
requests?
going to do? Yeah. And so many people and mentors that I would have come up against, their first remark was, why did you put the cart before the horse?
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't mean to, it wasn't the intention. And it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you were in the New Frontiers program with TU Dublin, and you did phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and I would say you're doing now phase 4.
Yeah.
You're becoming one of the drivers or the mentors of New Frontiers. So tell us, did you find beneficial getting involved with New Frontiers? At what stage of your idea, of your business idea, you decided this might be a good program for me, and would you recommend it to other people that have an idea and they just want to see where it goes next?
100%. I mean, I couldn't recommend it more. Going back to that moment of only having one and thinking, what am I going to do? The quickest thing I thought was, I'll license the design. I'll sell it. And one thing as well that I was very grateful of, I put design rights on it in Ireland before I released it anywhere.
Yeah.
So I was protected. And my choice, I had two choices at the time: either go about producing it myself and it take X amount of time, or put the money into strengthening my intellectual property and find someone to do it who's already done it.
Yeah.
And so that's the route I took. And I went through about 1.5 years of getting really far with companies, but it was still during the economic crash. And like, for instance, 8 months of negotiating with a company where the contracts were signed up and there were legal teams on this side and that side, and you were about to sign, and I get an email going, we can't commit to this right now. And it would be devastating. And so I got so fed up with it. I decided I'm going to do it myself. And the solution was New Frontiers.
Yeah.
100%. It was the catalyst for everything. It was the most amazing program. It's the way it trains you, stress tests the business, every aspect of it. The mentors, the facilitators, the peer-to-peer support that you get. I mean, some of those guys I'm still friends with, and it's just fantastic. And that, they celebrate the highs and they're there for the lows as well.
Yeah.
And you all just have the same mission of global domination.
Yeah. So the way you've done it, you've gone through building a business, and now you're helping other businesses. If you could give the top 1 or 2 or 3 piece of advices that you will give to someone they're starting up, like for example a mature student that have come back to college and they're thinking of getting involved and going the next step, a part of the New Frontiers to get involved. Is there something else you think it could be beneficial for them to consider at this early stage?
At the moment, you were saying I'm in phase 4 at the moment because I'm managing the New Frontiers program in IADT in partnership with Nova UCD, and I think the participants really value the fact that I have gone through the process, and I love working with students as well because, I think with social media and everything and all these influencers, this life of an entrepreneur is very appealing and it can absolutely give you so much freedom. But one of the things that I always say to everyone is that you really have to manage your expectations and remove your self-worth from the success or the failure of it. Because you can have amazing experiences, but it can be very difficult and it can be very isolating. And getting onto a program or connecting with other entrepreneurs. If you're a student, with other people who are interested in entrepreneurship, it's so important, because friends and family are great, but if they're not in it, they don't understand. And you know, something that sometimes you could have a problem as an entrepreneur and you want to talk to somebody about it, it could take too long to explain the whole thing to your friend. Whereas if you say it to another entrepreneur, they just get it. I had a funny situation with one of the workshops we held before Christmas. Our facilitator liked to come on early and have a coffee and have a chat with the participants, and I came a bit later to let them chat, and I thought to myself as I was logging on, I hope I can catch up. And I came in on the conversation where the facilitator said, well, it's like a marriage. And I laughed to myself, and he said, oh, what are you laughing about? And I said, well, I thought I was afraid I wouldn't be able to catch up, but you're clearly talking about co-founders. So, you know, you don't need to spill the whole thing out.
Yeah. We're all going through the same journey.
Yeah,
one way or another.
Exactly. And it's just that support that you get. There's really nothing like it.
Yeah. So I know for a little while you took a break from the bookshelves that I adore, and I hope in the future I'll have one in my house. But and then you started doing these prints that you went exhibiting in Milan, and then in a gallery in London they're selling it. It's like a bubble came up again. How are you managing that?
It's I'm really proud of that, because, you know, it's a little bit like a musician coming out with a second album. So, you know, the bookcase it exists, and I'm looking at new avenues. It is available, but there are other things that I want to do with it. And there's the coffee table range, and there's a few other products there. But, you know, you learn from what you're doing. And I decided, well, what happened was I decided to go to the south of France and visit Eileen Gray's villa, E1027. And I was, you know, it's amazing. And if anyone has the opportunity to go, they should definitely go. And I came back and I painted 5 canvases, and I turned them into screen prints. And during the pandemic, I was selected to exhibit virtually at Milan Design Week, and then in person in September. And I love the screen prints, but my intention is to turn them into rugs.
Wow.
So they were there as a visual for people to see, but the conversations I was having was with rug manufacturers and textiles, and moving into that side of it. And I learnt my lesson with the colours, so they're monochrome, black and white, just to make my life a bit easier. And it was fantastic. And so I'm working with somebody in Milan to hopefully get them going.
Brilliant.
And then in December, you mentioned the gallery. It's the London Lighthouse Gallery. They've been fantastically supportive, and they offered me a solo exhibition. So
congratulations! It's brilliant.
So they requested 21 canvases, which I painted and exhibited in December, along with the furniture. And it was the first time the two were exhibited side by side. And it was fantastic because I got to do a lot of investigation into what the rugs might look like, and playing around with repetitive patterns. And so, we'll see what happens. The other thing with rugs is there's a good margin and nothing's breakable.
They're easier to move than the furniture, isn't it?
they're a lot easier to move. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it gives a lot of personality to a place, a nice robe, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I'd be hoping to have them in retailers in Paris, because that'd be a big market.
Yeah.
And that's really something for any of the entrepreneurs to really consider, because a lot of people, and I would have been guilty of it myself before I went through the process.
Yeah.
You create something, and when someone says who's the market, you say everybody.
Yeah, I love it. So how come everyone else doesn't love it? Everybody needs it.
But you have to zone in on who is actually. Everyone might love it, but who's actually going to give you the money?
Yeah.
So really seeing who that is.
And that's one thing that startups especially, they get too hung up about, no, this is the perfect solution. Like, I mean, it's so perfect. Can you not see it?
Yeah.
And it might be perfect solution for you, but you need to validate it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
even to mold, like you pass from, okay, I have a physical furniture that, it's a bookshelf and it's chairs and tables. Okay, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And being able, that fluidity to be able to move the product to suit the demand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the logistics of it. Like, is that, because, I mean...
When you went to the Lele show with the... Sorry, I forgot to say, she's been in the Irish Times, she's been in the Lele show, she's been everywhere. It's hard to keep up with her. So, you had to assemble it and assemble it and put it in the big boxes and bring it back.
Well, I keep my dad busy. He's director of the company. So, he gets the call and he has to go move it. But the logistics side of it, talking about new frontiers, that gave me the opportunity to actually commercialize the bookcase.
Yeah.
And, set milestones of 6 months. And my milestones for New Frontiers was, by month 6, I'd be exhibiting at Milan Design Week.
Yeah.
And that meant being selected for it as, it's a curated exhibition.
Yeah.
And going through product development to get it there at manufacture point.
Yeah.
And that's the support that you get. In order to execute that. It's fantastic.
Otherwise, you can just focus so much on the design. That is the part probably you love the most.
Yeah.
But the design on its own is not going to be sold.
Yeah.
And talking about design, what do you do when you have to design something and there's a deadline and you run out of inspiration? What do you do? Is there a methodology? Is there a secret sauce that one follows, or what is your secret for when you're stuck and you have to actually come up with an idea of a creation?
Well, I mean, for me, I've kind of always set my own brief, if you will. Like, I never went into a design studio. I suppose my only experience of that would have been I was doing set design for a period of time.
Yes.
And the only way that I would get out of writer's block, for lack of a better term, is making. So sometimes I won't even sketch. I'll just start building.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
And build it again.
Yeah.
So foam board and blades are my way.
It's like the 5 minutes rule, take something you're stuck and just give it 5 minutes and see what happens.
Exactly. And all of a sudden it's
so
an
in
hour.
design, with a bit of modeling, it works as well. That's good to know.
Yeah. But it's going back to, designing things and making things make me really happy. So to go back to something that makes me happy, whether that's making something with fabric that has nothing to do with what I actually have to do, but it just gets your brain going again. And takes the pressure off. Yeah.
So now that you've done this amazing journey, if you could go back to your 23-year-old back to college or making that decision, which advice would you give to yourself, or you would have loved somebody would have give you?
Yeah. Gosh.
At the time.
What would I have loved? You know, I think it's actually advice that was given to me that I found really helpful and that stuck with me. And it's to look 5 years ahead and go, what do you want? And, you know, what are the top 3 things you want? And not even what you want, you know, I want a house, I want a car. How do you want to feel? You know, who are the people you want around you? And, you know, I say that to the entrepreneurs when they're building their teams. It's not about I need an admin person, a marketing person. What are the personalities that are going to work to make this happen? And I really think it's, once you can start visualizing that, you can start to make it happen.
Yes.
And I think that's really important, especially at 23 or when you're in college. And I mean, you've plenty of time, but
you don't.
I didn't want to say anything.
Time flies, and I mean, you do learn by doing and by making mistakes, and you have to do your own mistakes, and you have to be adaptable and move on, and you know, and you can't win every battle, and it's adapt, isn't it? And keep trying and know when to let something go, maybe, and try something else,
and it's
take a break.
It's trusting yourself as well, because when you're younger and whether you go into entrepreneurship or not, you'll find yourself in situations where, you know, you get a gut feeling about something or someone, and you have to trust that. You know, my mother always used to say to me, make the decision and then make the decision right. So even if it's not the right decision, make it right. So,
and my last question for today is there any role models or anyone that inspire you? So if you ever had a doubt of, will I go and produce this? Was there someone that you thought, or a moment that you thought, gosh, you know, that person has given me the push, or...
to do it.
To do it, or to go for it, or...
Well, I have to say, I had the most amazing mentor when I was on the New Frontiers program.
Colin.
Colin is fantastic, of course. But his name was Tim Cahill.
Oh, Tim.
Cahill. And he actually passed away about 2 months before I went to Milan. And he rang me and he was like, you have to go and you have to sell hundreds of them. And he had no doubt that this was going to happen. And he was absolutely fantastic in everything that he did. He gave such great advice, and it wouldn't have happened without him. He was brilliant. And to this day, I'd say I think about him every day.
Wow.
And absolutely the advice that he gives me. And he always said with anything, because I would have been going into quite difficult negotiations. I would have been working in a mainly male dominated industry.
That was a question I was going to ask you. Yes.
And it was difficult because, I mean, for me, especially at the beginning, I didn't know how to do this. And so I didn't have the confidence at the beginning to put my foot down about things. But certainly with him, he built me up to, you know, he would say to me, you have to go in bigger than you are. I would have been negotiating abroad. He was like, you have to give the impression that you have this HQ back in Dublin. And I, you know, he gave so much confidence. But that was a real barrier.
Yeah. That you managed to overcome?
Absolutely. And you know, there's it, you know, I mean, I had so many experiences, walking around workshops, and you know, I built all the prototypes, and then I wanted it professionally. I wanted it mass produced, but I would always go and tour the workshops before I'd decide to move forward. And more than one occasion, I'd be walked around and told, now this is the machine we used to cut the wood.
Oh gosh.
Like, thanks. It's good to know. And I mean, I had one sale, and I got a new manufacturer to produce it, and I wasn't happy with it. And I went out to the workshop to see how things were going, and like, there's no room for error with the bookcase. It's so, the lines have to meet, the tables and chairs have to be perfectly welded, and I said to them, "You're gonna have to take it back and do it again." And they were like, "It's grand," and I was like, "It's not grand." So they take it back and they show it to me again, and I was like, "You're gonna have to shave down the welding." And one of them turned around to me and said, "You know, you've no idea how hard this is to build." And it's not hard. They were making a meal out of it, to be honest. But I was like, "I do actually." And he was like, "Oh, right, because you built them, have you?" And I was like, yes, I built them. So I know. So fix it.
And they did.
And they did.
And they did.
And they went, those two units went off to the Waterfront Hilton in Beverly Hills.
Wow. They definitely had to be perfect.
They had to be perfect.
So I said it was my last question, but another question have come to my head, and this is the last question now. What's next? What's next for Orla?
Yeah.
What's next for the design, Orla design, or what's next?
Well, at the moment, I mean, I'm absolutely loving managing the New Frontiers program. It's been a dream job since I was on the program. I just loved watching, how they engage with all the companies, and I've realized while I love design, I love the business side of it. I love to encourage it. I think that I can, in my experience, I can see the route to market and what might become challenging.
Yes.
And so I absolutely adore that, and I adore the entrepreneurs that I'm working with. And in the meantime, I'm never going to be able to stop making things, because I can't, so I have to. Yeah. And I'm excited for the rugs. The rugs. Yeah, and to move into textiles. I have a history with textiles. My grandmother used to manufacture ties.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah. Always that I talk to you, I discover so much.
Yeah, one of my earliest memories is sitting in her breakfast room, and she had the Singer sewing machine, and she was making ties. Yeah. And she'd sew them inside out, and my job was to get a wooden dowel and pull them the right way out again. And I'd just sit there for hours. So we had a little production line. Yeah.
I'm coming from textile as well.
I know. Yeah. So and
who knows? We might end going on textile together in the future.
But like, I went to, I dropped out of school when I was 15 and went to the Grafton Academy of Fashion Design, and then my parents made me go back to school, but fashion is definitely something that really appeals to me. Yeah. So. Who knows? That's
a good way to finish, isn't it? Who knows? So Orla, thank you so much for being with us today. I really enjoy it. I can't believe I even find out more things about you that I didn't know. So much. And it's great. The best of luck, and we'll hope to see you very soon.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure.
Thank you.